As promised, here are your 2 extra examples of graphing sine and cosine. So here is our first example, y equals 2 cosine of pi x plus pi over 3 minus 2. Let's go ahead and identify everything. First of all, we need our amplitude. Since a is 2, our amplitude is 2. The period is 2 pi divided by b. B is pi, so our period is 2. It is okay if our period is a radian measure without the letter pi or the number pi attached to it. Okay, this will happen every once in a while. It's perfectly normal. Okay. Our starting point is going to be c over b comma d. Well, here is our c, except remember it's bx minus c, so c is really negative pi over 3 divided by b, and then our d is negative 2 because we have negative 2 here subtracted at the end. Okay, so our starting point is negative 1/3, negative 2. So we're going to draw our frame, and then later we will worry about where the x and y axes are. So our starting point is negative 1/3, negative 2. Okay. We are going to draw up our amplitude of 2 and down our amplitude of 2. So we're going from negative 2 to 0 and negative 2 to negative 4. And we're going to draw our rectangle, or our frame, the length of the period. If we're beginning at negative 1/3 and our period is 2, we're going to take negative 1/3 and add 2 to it. Which is 5/3. So then, we're going to split our frame in half and then in half again. So if I take negative 1/3 and I add it to 5/3 and then cut it in half, our halfway point is 2/3. Okay. And then we're going to cut this in half. So to figure out what that number is, take negative 1/3, add it to 2/3, and cut it in half. So here we are at 1/6. And then we're going to cut it in half over here. So take 2/3, add it to 5/3, divide by 2. And so here we are at 7/6. So this means that our y-axis is here, and our x-axis is here. Okay, our starting point was here at negative 2, and our amplitude is 2, so our frame stretched all the way up to the x-axis. Now we get to plot our points. We have a cosine curve. Remember, we start in the top corner of our frame, not at the starting point. Then we go to the next set of dotted lines. Each dotted line tells us where to plot a point, and the cosine curve should look like a valley. Okay? We then need to label these points. So this point right here is negative 1/3, 0. Then we have 1/6, negative 2. Then we have 2/3, negative 4. 7/6, negative 2. And then 5/3, 0. You can label them on the graph or in an XY table off to the side. pattern continues over and over in both directions. Our domain is all real numbers for any cosine curve or sine curve for that matter. And our range for this particular example goes from -4 to 0. Here's our second example and final example for this video. Since A is 4, our amplitude is 4. B is 2, so our period is 2 pi divided by 2, which is pi. Our starting point is going to be C divided by B, comma D. C is pi over 2, B is 2, and there is no D, so we just put 0. So our starting point is pi over 4, 0. So we'll draw our frame, figure out where we are, and then draw on our X and Y axis. So here's our starting point at pi over 4, 0. So we're going to draw up 4 and down 4. So this frame is going to stretch from -4 to +4. Then we're going to go over the length of the period, which is pi. Now, if we start here at X is pi over 4, and we add pi, then here we are at 5 pi over 4. Cut our frame in half, both ways. I want the middle of pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. So add the 2 and divide by 2, and we are at 3 pi over 4. Okay. Halfway between pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4. Add the 2, divide by 2, 1/2 pi. If you need to work with the fractions and then throw in the pi later, that is fine. And then halfway between 3/4 pi and 5/4 pi would be 1 pi. Okay. So you can see that our y-axis, excuse me, this is our x-axis. Our x-axis is here. And then our y-axis would be here. So then our sine curve begins at our starting point and goes up to the top, back to the middle, down to the bottom, back to where we started. Okay. So our coordinates, we have pi over 4, 0. Pi over 2, 4, 3 pi over 4, 0, pi -4, and 5 pi over 4, 0. All sine curves have a domain of all real numbers. And this particular example has a range of -4 to 4. I hope these two examples help. I hope you have enjoyed your weekend, and we will see you on Tuesday.